Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Randy. Thanks for joining me today on the Black Orchid Project. I hope you guys are all doing well. Listen, it is getting into orchid season. I'm starting to see more orchids, although they're available year round. I'm starting to see more at the different stores and things like that, especially with Valentine's Day coming up and we are going into spring. And so I wanted to do a video that I think would help you quite a bit, especially if you're new and understanding how to keep your orchids happy and healthy. Now, two things that you can do for any plant, and that's one, understand the elements it's supposed to be in: heat, cold, humidity, different things like that. Sunlight, how much sunlight, that is a must to learn what your plant should be in and how it should be kept in its elements. Two, understanding your plant's root system. That is very, very important. Some roots like to be dry, some roots like to be wet, some roots can handle anything. And so today we're going to talk about, or I'm going to show you a little trick on how to better understand your orchid roots. So I think this is going to help you, one, in maybe rescuing some of your plants, and two, helping you to keep plants better by understanding the root system. And make sure you stick around to the end, because I'm going to throw in a couple pro tips there. So stick around, let's get started. All right, let's get started here. But first of all, if you like orchid content, go on and subscribe to the channel. That way you'll be notified when new content comes out. If you're just here for this particular video and you like it, do me a favor, go on and give it a thumbs up. That way YouTube knows I am giving content out that people are enjoying. If you watch this and have a comment, please feel free to leave a comment. You will see I do try to answer as many comments as I can. I can't get to all of them usually, and it may take me a few days to get to them, but I try my best to get to them as fast as possible and as many as possible. So let's get started here. Now, as you can see, I got a weird setup going on here, and that is all of these plants are in plastic cups and they have their roots exposed. Now, here's the thing. From a care standpoint, each one of these plants has been in these cups for at least 3 months each. So this one, I can't even remember. If you can see this, you can see that this thing is almost root locked in here. I didn't stuff this in here. This has been in here and it's just kind of grown and spread out. Now, a couple of these, let's see, this one I was sending out to somebody and it got returned to me, and I sent it out bare root, and when it got returned, I just took it out the box real quick out of laziness and just threw it in this cup thinking I would send it out again soon, and didn't. And so that's why that one's in here. And this particular plant I bought because I liked the plastic pot. I needed a plastic pot at the time. This one was on discount because it had dropped its blooms, and I wanted that pot. So I came home, pulled it out the pot, cleaned it off, and just used the pot for something else and put it in here. And again, it's just been sitting in here, and I'm going to show you how I've been keeping these alive and why this is important. Now, like I said, the thing is, the reason I made this video is to show you about your roots. And so I'm going to take this particular one here and just kind of lay it out. And as you can see, I never trim these roots, but these are your roots. Actually, these are not your roots. If you watch my videos, you know this is not the root. This is a root covering. I'm going to use this big one here as a example. As you can see, this is a big green root. Now, one thing I want you to pay attention to is look how green that root is. Look how healthy this particular leaf is, and that lets you know this plant is doing well, although it hasn't been in any soil or anything. But you can see this one, this could probably be clipped, and maybe a couple of these could be clipped. But actually, if you look down at the bottom, they're a little solid down here. It's a little solid down at the bottom. And so, you know, they're still doing their job, even though they look dead in the middle here. But what I want you to know is this is not the root. This green part is not the root. This is just a root covering. There's actually a little skinny root down in the middle of here. I don't want to strip one of the roots, but there's a tiny root in here. So these are literally just sponges. They hold water for the root. So these grow on the side of trees and things like that, and they'll be mounted to a tree and in humid areas. And this particular root will just, or this sponge on the outside will suck moisture out the air and actually feed that root, even though it is in the air. So these are all technically air roots, even though we tend to put them under, bark or something like that. Never put them under soil. You always want them in some bark or some sphagnum moss or something that is going to breathe. But that just lets you know. So basically, the whole idea is if you can keep these moist and getting oxygen, they are going to feed your plant. And that's why I can just drop this plant in here, and I'm going to put this here and show you what I do, and I'm going to show you how this works. As you can see, some of these are still pretty. They're not really green. They look a little dull and dingy because I kind of purposely didn't water it because I knew I was going to make this video. And what I'm going to do is just add some of this water to this cup. And usually I don't do this with a measuring cup or anything. I literally walk over to the sink, put water in it, and I will let this sit in here. You can see, I don't know if you can see this up close, but this is actually bubbling. And the reason it's bubbling is just because, like a sponge, it's sucking water in and releasing air. So you can see a little bit of bubbling in here. But what this is going to do is just hydrate these roots. And I'll let this sit here. You guys know me. If you follow me long enough, I'm not going to lie to you and act like I am this horticulturalist. Can't even get it out because that's not what I am. And, I water plants, keep them in here a certain amount of time. I'll put these in here, and it might be in here for 15 minutes if I'm doing something that I remember, or if it's sitting next to the sink or something like that. There's times it'll sit in here for 24 hours or more. And then I'll just come and go, oh crap, I forgot to pour that out. And then all I'm going to do is just pour that back out. And even in this little bit of time, you should see that these roots got a lot more green. And that is just, it's sucking up the water. So one way to know when your plants need to be watered, and I get this question all the time, when do I water my plants? And I'm going to do a watering series here soon, so stick around for that. But when they look dull and they look silvery gray, that is a time that you want to water them. If they're nice and plump and green, then they don't need to be watered. That means that they still have some water content in them. So there is, when people ask me about watering, I hate it that I have to say, I can't give them a schedule because they want a schedule. But the main thing is to know when they need to be watered. And so, like I said, that was quick enough. If that's all you can do and you have to go, then run some water on them and head out. If you put them on there and you put it in there and you leave it 15 minutes and you remember, dump it out, you'll be good. If it's in there 24 hours or so, it's fine. The main thing, and I've said this in other videos, is that you just don't want to leave it in here where the water gets really stagnant. That's the only thing that's going to kill it. It can sit in water for days, really, as long as the water just doesn't get old and stagnant. If you put new water in here that has oxygen in it, new oxygen, it can just live in the water like that. You just have to make sure you keep an eye on it. Now, this will not hurt the plant. I can tell you, you can see here with this plant, this is actually a new root, and this particular leaf, like I said, is really healthy. So this is actually thriving. I don't feel like it's growing as fast as it should, but it is staying alive, and that's one of the main things. So let me just move into that really fast. So let's just say you get a new plant, or you have a plant and you feel like it needs to be replanted, or the bark is breaking down, or something's not right with your roots. My suggestion to you is to just get it out of that bad mix and soil that they might put it in or whatever. And so you can see your roots. And once you get to see your roots, as long as you have a few good, healthy roots, you are good. As you can see, I'm going to show you this one. This one has been in this cup for, like I said, 3-4 months. There's a nice healthy root there, and there is a new leaf here. As you can see, root here and a leaf right there. So yeah, and it's just been sitting in this cup. Now, the thing about this one, I just want to show you another technique, is since this one has a nice long root, I'm just going to drop it in there, and it's supported by these leaves here, and that root just sits in the water down there. And I'll do it like I did the other one. I'll pour it in there sometime, but most of the time I'll just leave it there. And what I'll do is just walk by every once in a while and just shake it, and that's just going to put more oxygen in it. And I'll walk by and do that and just leave it alone. And as you can see, this thing is actually thriving. So if you have a plant that is, you feel like it's going downhill, one of the things you want to do is to see the roots. Get to the roots. You know, if nothing else, if you don't have any medium, or you don't have the time to repot, or you're not comfortable repotting right then, get it out the pot, get all the nasty stuff off of it, and put it inside of a cup. Now, if you do it like I did before, where you pour water on it, let it sit, you don't even have to sit there and clean it and different things like that. Just, you know, as you put it on there over time, you put it on there, you know, it'll pull that stuff off of there. You pour it off. Next thing you know, your roots, because I can tell you, I did not clean these roots for the most part. You know, when I put it in here, it's just over time has cleaned those roots and, you know, poured itself off, and now they are nice and clean. So now I told you, if you stuck around, I was going to show you a few what I consider pro tips here. And that is, one, like I said, you know, if you don't want to do the pour in, pour out, you can just put some water in the bottom and if you have roots that's long enough, let them soak and they will come up. 2, now this is a great one. If you want to do the deal where you pour the water on them all the way, you just pour, you know, run some water on them, like I said, from the bathtub, and pull it up, come up all the way to right below the crown. That way the crown doesn't sit in there and it gets wet. But as you can see, it'll cover all these roots, and just let it sit. Here's your pro tip. I take a pin, like a small pin or something small, and poke tiny holes around the bottom of the cup. And what that's going to do is I set it right on the edge of the sink, not where it'll run off on the floor, but where the water runs into the sink, or just leave it in the sink. And so if you're worried that you're going to have to leave your plant, or you might forget about it, put some holes in it, run the water in it. Those little holes will drip out the water over time. And so in a matter of a couple of hours or 24 hours, all the water will drip out. You can just forget about it, especially if it's close to a sink or like on your bathtub edge. You literally can just let those, you know, the water just run out. You don't even have to think about it anymore. Just fill it up, and by the time it runs out real slow, it's going to hydrate, but yet not sit in the water. Next, and I'm going to bring this one up because we haven't talked about this one. Like I said, this one's been in here forever. And so I put it in here just kind of on a whim. I grabbed this mason jar, just dropped it in, and after a while, I thought I just want to see how long it would last if it started to go downhill, and it didn't. Now, I can tell you, this is probably the most interesting thing I have, is this really, you know, green root right here. That's probably the most interesting thing we have going on here. And it hasn't had a lot of growth, but again, it is surviving. And I just want to see what happens with this. So now this is going to stay in here forever. As you can see, also, there's some nice green roots down here. So down at the bottom, it's really healthy, just not getting a lot of top growth here. Or definitely we haven't gotten a spike yet. But as you can see with this one, there is there is bark at the bottom. There's big pieces of fir bark. So if you have some big pieces of fir bark, just drop them in the bottom. Why am I saying that? Why do I do that? Now, here's the trick with this. The bark feeds like tannins, you know, like the rich tannins and things. That's what the bark does for the roots. That's why we plant in bark. So it can, as we water, it kind of dissolves and it feeds our roots and feeds our plant with the tannins. With this one, I will just put water in here. Like I said, we'll just run it, and I'll fill it up usually. Well, that made a mess. But I'll let it sit. I'll usually fill it all the way up to here. But then when I pour it off, I'll pour it off and I'll leave a little bit of water down at the bottom. And what this water is going to do is just sit with this bark and kind of dissolve it. And so the next time I water, it's going to water with, it's going to mix with some of the water with the tannins in it. It's going to rise up, feed the roots. And then when I pour it off, it's getting more oxygen, and I'll just leave a little bit of water down at the bottom to kind of dissolve or help, to just kind of work with the bark down there. So I hope you really enjoyed that tip. And last but not least is, I like to use black tea a lot. So with this particular, I just put a little bit of black tea. Now you can do this by the gallon. So with a gallon, I would say put maybe let's say a tablespoon in for a whole gallon, maybe not even that much, and just let it sit. And then when you get ready to water the plant, let me find one here. I guess, just use this one. I'm just going to take this tea water and just pour it in here. And again, the black tea has the same tannins, or have tannins, just like the orchid bark. And so now I'm also giving it, food through the tea. Now, some people do this with the banana water. I haven't tried it yet. Look it up. It's like banana water, where you take banana peels, just let it sit in water. It has a lot of potassium. People swear by it. I'm going to try that soon. Also, if you have a water-soluble food, you can just feed it. Keep a gallon of it around, pour it in there, let it sit, and then just pour it off. So that is it. That is your pro tips. And that is, better understanding your root system. Once you understand the roots and how they operate, again, and, knowing when they're too wet, knowing when they're too dry. And just let me say this also, it's better for them to be too dry than to be too wet. Because if they stay wet, and when I say wet, like I said, this can sit in here. Wet is wet. They will soak up just like a sponge, and they're wet. They're not going to get more wet. So a lot of people, all right, so that's going to do it for this video. I hope you got some valuable information out of what I shared today. If you did, just go on and hit the like button if nothing else. And if you are new here, go on and hit the subscribe button. And you like what you saw. More importantly, don't just hit it because I asked. Hit it because you want to know when new content is coming out. Also, you can join me on the Black Orchid Project if you need to ask me questions and send me pictures over on Instagram. That is where I can get pictures and better help you out with your plants. I try to answer as many comments as I can. Also, if you want to support the channel, I do have a Patreon. That's Patreon at the Black Orchid Project. You can become a Patreon. I do plant giveaways. I had some new bark that I designed, and I send out samples. We kind of conversate. You can talk to others about your plants, things like that. It's like my little small community. It's small, but we are growing. And so with that, I want to say thank you to all my Patreons. If you just want to say thank you with like a small tip, you can go over to buymeacoffee.com/the Black Orchid Project. And so that is just like a little thank you. And all of that just helps. Everything I just mentioned, and every YouTuber says it helps us keep the content coming to you. And, if you need supplies, things like bark, or, you find yourself where you don't have bark and you don't have pots and things like that, you can look down at the description. I do have links to places on Amazon where you can get bark, food, pots, things like that. Of course, they're going to give me a small percentage or a small thank you. That's all it is, for having the links down there, because I am an affiliate, but you still pay the regular price and I get it just a little bit of it. So feel free to do that also. Now, that is going to do it for me today. As always, be safe. More importantly, be kind. Never give up on them. And until next time, peace.